Miss Lizzie. I don't ever smoke the dizzy, but we can always share some ditsies. It's just a cup in time. This song doesn't have to rhyme. Life's all of us, not every moment we can be feeling fine. I wanna share a moment, just a second if you will, maybe even a cup of thrill. We could share this performance. It's tea time, come sit with me.
Guys, Miss Liz here. It's a glitchy day in this house. I don't know what is going on, but I want to thank everybody for staying tuned and holding on to the buckle of the seatbelt today with Miss Liz. I have Dr. Peter B. Cotton in the house, and we're going to talk about Fred the Snake series. That's what we're going to talk about today. But before we get started, you guys know how Miss Liz rolls. Go over to Spotify, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, all of those good platforms. Give that a like, follow, and subscribe, and get these tea times out there because they do make a difference for my guests and for people who they resonate with. And today we have some children's stories. So you know how grandma feels about those stories. I'm going to be getting some of those Fred the Snakes for my granddaughters. So, but before we get started, let's get a disclaimer out there and then an intro, and let's get Dr. Peter in here. We're going to spill some tea, and today his tea is nurture family. That's right. So we're going to do some nurturing of the family as well. Disclaimer for Miss Liz's Tea Time live show. Miss Liz's Tea Time is a global platform dedicating to sharing real life stories, diverse perspectives, and meaningful conversations that inspire awareness, healing, and connection. Miss Liz is going live using StreamYard. Before leaving a comment during the live broadcast, please grant StreamYard permission to display your name at StreamYard.com. Please be advised that all the content brought forward during any Tea Time show is presented in good faith. However, discussions may include opinions, beliefs, and perspectives that do not necessarily represent the views of Miss Liz or the Tea Time platform. Information shared by guests is based on their own experiences and is perceived to be accurate at the giving time of airing. All guests, viewers, and participants are responsible for using their own good judgment when considering any action or decisions that may relate to these discussions. Some episodes may cover sensitive topics, including but not limited to trauma, abuse, grief, mental health, and other emotionally triggering subjects. Listeners' and viewers' discretion is strongly advised. Tea Time with Miss Liz is an open discussion forum designed to offer insight, inspire awareness, and create connection. It is not a substitute for professional, medical, legal, or therapeutical advice. If you require professional support, please seek assistance from qualified professionals or trusted resources in your area. If you have any questions regarding this disclaimer or the content of the discussion, you are welcome to contact me, aka directly at my email at bookingmissliz@gmail.com or check out my link tree at Miss Liz's Tea Time. By choosing to participate in, comment on, or view these live shows, you acknowledge and accept this disclaimer. Your participation is entirely voluntary, and Miss Liz, welcomes you to join the conversation with an open heart. And if at any time you feel this platform is not right for you, I respect those wishes and decision and welcome you back whenever you are ready. Tea Time with Miss Liz is serving truth and awareness one cup at a time. And let me give you a little bit about Dr. Peter. Welcome to Tea Time with Miss Liz, where legacy, life lessons, and lived experiences are always part of the conversation. Today, I have the deep honor of welcoming Dr. Peter B. Cotton, an 85-year young Dr. Cotton embodies something powerful, a life fully lived across many chapters. Before becoming an award-winning children's author, he spent 5 decades saving lives as a pioneer gastroenterologist, a graduate of Cambridge University and at St. Thomas Hospital Medical School in London. He went on to become a global leader in endoscopies, publishing nearly 1,000 medical papers, authoring 10 medical textbooks, including the definite Cotton and Williams, Practical Gastroenterology, and endoscopy. I'll get him to say it. And lecturing more than 50 countries. He even named the procedure known as ERCP. But here is what I love most about today's guest. The first Fred the Snake story was simply a bedtime tale for his children in England. Years later, when his grandchildren asked, "What happened to Fred?" That story became a 10-book award-winning children's series. From saving lives in operating rooms to teaching children how not to cross the road, that is a beautiful full circle. Dr. Cotton now lives near Charleston, South Carolina, with his wife, Marion, surrounded by children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren, proof that impact is measured not just in titles, but in generations. Dr. Cotton, welcome to Tea Time. We are honored to sit with you today. Let me get him in here and let's spill some tea.
Hey, thank you very much. I've actually got a cup in my hand. Although I'm afraid to say it's coffee, but it looks the same. Thank you very much for inviting me.
Well, Dr. Peter, you know what's in the cup is always a surprise in this house as well. I have coffee as well on this side. I should be drinking tea. I'm the tea lady, but hey, we need a coffee to perk ourselves up, right?
Well, yes, it helps at this time in the afternoon for sure. But anyway, it's a pleasure to be with you.
Well, Dr. Peter, tell me a little bit who you were as a little guy and who you are now.
Oh, that's a long story. But I grew up in England, and my dad was a country doctor, and I learned from him about what it's like to be a doctor. And then, as you said, I trained in London. I worked there for quite a long time. But then after a while, it got rather difficult, and I was recruited to Duke University in North Carolina, where I spent happy 8 years as a professor. And then my boss there was recruited down to Charleston, South Carolina, where I am now, to be a big boss at the Medical University of South Carolina. And so I joined him there, and I've been down here ever since. I stopped practicing about 10 years ago now, but I still continued in doing some research and teaching on the side at the same time as working on my series of Fred books that you mentioned.
Yeah, I'm going to pull up all of the 10 books because I have an image here that I'm going to pull up. You've got 10 of these incredible Fred the Snake series. What started Fred the Snake?
Well, as I said, it was a bedtime story to start with. I'm trying to explain to my young kids then about how to cross the road. I started with the snake, which might sound to be not a particularly good idea to be a children's toy, because normally they would prefer a puppy or a koala bear or something like that. But I developed a lot of the endoscopes that you mentioned for gastrointestinal endoscopy. When I told my young children what I did all day with these flexible black instruments, they said, "Oh, it's a snake." So in fact, my daytime work became an evening time snake story. But I didn't do anything with it. It was just a bedtime story until they had their own children and said, "What happened to Fred?" Actually, they said, "What happened to Fred?" Because he was in the first book, he was squished and mended, as you can see on the screen now. That was a story about how not to cross the road, which seemed quite popular. So we decided to do some more. The second one on the right is when the boy took him to school. So you can imagine that was kind of alarming to teachers and the kids. A snake at school is fairly unusual, but he became very popular because he did things that they needed, like a jump rope and a water slide for the swimming pool and a soccer goal. And he eventually became the hero of the school, which was great. And then he got a bit lonely, and so he asked Jungle Jim to come over and bring some more animals. That was the third book. And so we got a bunch of new animals, and best yet, a lady snake called Bernadette. So they got a girlfriend now. That was good. And then moving right along, they went to the beach, and then they had an adventure going camping. And then books 7, 8, and 9 were exploring the United States. So they traveled all over the United States, by which time they'd picked up a boy and a girl to go with them, happened to be 2 of my grandchildren, Purdy and Jack. So they went across the states from Charleston to Hawaii. Now the last book, number 10, I wrote about the Chinese zodiac calendar, because it turned out that 2025 is the year of the snake in the Chinese calendar. So I looked into that, and it turns out that the calendar is developed from a race in which 12 animals race across the river to the Heavenly Gate. And my wonderful illustrator, Bonnie Lemaire, who's illustrated all these books, had a tremendous time illustrating the animal race across the river. So that's where we are with Fred. I've enjoyed it, and some people seem to enjoy it. So we've had some awards and quite a lot of nice reviews. It's all been fun.
So let's talk a little bit about, I'm going to pull you up here so we can talk together. So Dr. Peter, let's talk about the illustrator. I believe her name is Bonnie. How did you find Bonnie?
Well, I was very, very lucky about that. When I started thinking about publishing for the first time, I went online and looked around. And in fact, it was a publisher that actually put me onto a selection of well-known illustrators, and she immediately jumped out of her website. She is sensational, absolutely marvelous. I didn't actually meet her until we did the fourth book, which I didn't mention, which was about Charleston, South Carolina, where I live. I said, if you're going to illustrate Charleston, you better come and have a look at it. So she came down with her purple hair and a rather aggressive teenage son, and got to know Charleston, took some photographs, and since then she's continued. She's not only very good at illustrating my ideas, but she throws in her own ideas and some very good wrinkles. Each time I look at one of the books for the 10th or the 100th time, I see something that I hadn't really noticed before. She's really remarkable. She's writing her own books as well now, as well as illustrating them.
And then we have the designer, Christina.
Yeah, she's a local lady who designs magazines and books, who has been very helpful. I hadn't quite realized until I started publishing that the designer is almost as important as the person who writes it, because they put it together in a way that people can understand. So, incidentally, I'd like you to meet Fred. I brought him along. Is that okay?
Oh, I was hoping you were going to bring Fred.
There he is.
So how did you create Fred?
Well, this I found online. I didn't have to do anything particularly special about it, but he always comes with me when I'm reading at schools or in libraries, and actually he's traveled with me all over the world. He's been probably in 15 or so countries in the last 10 years. So he's a very well-traveled snake, and he enjoys it all. He's having a good time.
I think that's the only snake I'm not scared of.
Well, I also have an electric snake, which I take to schools, which causes absolute chaos amongst the kids. Love it, the teachers hate it, and but that's a lot of fun.
So did you like snakes as a little boy?
No, actually, growing up in England where it's colder, and there really aren't any snakes. I never came across one. We got some in South Carolina, but I don't get very close to them.
Well, we have a couple of books here that I found online that I'm going to pop up. If you want to just talk about what book they are, I'm just going to pop them up so we can see them. I think I have book 7.
Okay, that's East Coast. So if that's exploring when Fred the Snake and Friends. No, that's number 5.
That's number 5.
And so they go to the beach. Actually, they go to beach where I live. I said I live in Charleston, but actually I live on an island just outside Charleston called Deweese Island. And if you can see through the windows behind me, there's the Atlantic Ocean. So I'm on the beach of Deweese Island. So I took Fred and his friends and all the other animals and Bernadette to the beach. And that's one of the stories that has a moral to it. The first one, of course, was how to cross the road or how not to. This one, Bernadette gets a bit carried away on a wave and has to be rescued. So that's be careful on the beach. And on the camping book, we learn how not to eat nice looking mushrooms and strawberries, and berries, and be careful when you go hang gliding and things like that. And they actually got stuck over a waterfall when they were whitewater rafting. So, as I said, there's morals there. Some of them in rhyming, like in Alaska, if you meet a bear, be brave, shout out loud and madly wave, get together in a bunch to avoid becoming lunch. So all the books are rhyming.
Oh, I like that because that's easy for bedtime stories.
That's the way I write. I seem to enjoy it. But that's a nice. I mean, as you see on that illustration, the quality of Bonnie's illustrations are just terrific.
And I believe that this is the Chinese one.
Yeah, that's indeed. When Fred the Snake and friends learned the Chinese zodiac and the Great Race. So there are 12 animals, as I said. The lunar calendar is a rotation of 12 animals. And you can see one or two of them there, the ox and the rat and the cat. And you can see on the right-hand side, you can see Purdy and Jack, my grandchildren. And then on this book, we teamed up with two Chinese kids. That's Connor and Ellie, the two kids of a medical colleague of mine, who was able to explain all this stuff to my grandchildren. So they end up having a great party. You may know it's actually Chinese New Year right now. The Year of the Snake handed over to the Year of the Horse on the 17th of February. And then this is so-called the Spring Festival, where the Chinese people all over the world enjoy themselves for a couple of weeks and have all sorts of exciting feasts, and they wear red and gold and do line dancing and all sorts of wonderful things.
And the last one that I have here is, let me pop it up. There we go.
Yes, that's the East Coast. So they're just taking off there. Jungle Jim is flying them. That's him with the mustache. And there's a giraffe sort of making sure we know the way. And that's Purdy and Jack getting on. And then that's Fred hanging on to one of the struts there. So they take off from Charleston. They go off to DC, and go to the museums like Moon Rocks. You can see them in the Air and Space Museum. And they go on, obviously, to other things in the capital, go to New York, and then they take off, go to St. Louis and Chicago, they go to the Niagara Falls, and they go down the Mississippi, end up New Orleans, go off to Florida, go to the game parks, end up in Kitty Hawk and back to Charleston. So that was the sort of loop around the East Coast. That was the first of three.
I think it's amazing what you've done with these books because you've taught us lessons as well. And I always tell my grandkids and my kids this: you learn a lot from children's books, a lot more than from adults' books sometimes.
I think that's true. And in medicine, actually, I used to learn a lot from the nurses' books, not the doctors' books. The doctors were too complicated. The people who wrote for nurses wrote in words that I could understand. So maybe I'm not sure that's relevant, but it seems to be.
Well, Dr. Peter, we had some questions that came in, so I want to get those out to you today. The first one that came in is, what inspired the 10th book in Fred the Snake series?
Well, that's because, as I said, the Fred had been my hero all along, and some of my Chinese friends, I got quite a few because I've lectured in China quite a lot, said you need to write about the Chinese calendar because 2025 is the Year of the Snake, which I didn't know much about, to be brutally honest. But now I know an awful lot more, and I hope people who read the book will also know a bit more.
And how does Fred help children learn about culture and diversity?
Well, but obviously this is all about China. we travel across the United States and meet a number of different people in different environments. The United States is a huge mixture, as you well know, with all sorts of varieties of people and places. That's about all I could say on that, I think. Going to school was important because Fred learned how to read, and he could write a little bit. He had to use his tail to hold the pencil to write with, but he ended up writing some fairly basic words.
So, Dr. Peter, how old were you when you wrote your first children's book?
Well, the bedtime story, I guess, was when I was in my 40s, because that's when I had a couple of young children. That's a very long time ago. Not sure I remember that.
Why do you believe rhyme is so powerful for young readers?
I think they like to follow along. And actually, when I'm reading to schools, I often stop at the end of the second sentence to see who can think of the word that is relevant and rhymes. I think it gets your attention more than simple words. I'm not sure. Of course, my medical books are words in rhyme. So I guess I could, and I'm actually writing a sequel to my memoirs right now, and they're not rhyming. But hopefully people will still enjoy them.
Why do you feel nursery rhymes have started to derail, like kind of disappear?
Well, I think there's so much more now. I mean, when I was a kid, there was half a dozen stories that we were told by our parents and grandparents and everybody else around. Nowadays, I mean, you walk into a bookstore. I mean, I get depressed when I do that because there's so many.
It's overwhelming.
Quite apart from all the screens that the kids seem to be devouring from the age of 1 or 2 years old. So there's just so much variety, and that makes it very difficult to break into the children's book market. So I'm hoping you're going to help me with that.
Yeah, we got to get more books into kids' hands. I'm a strong believer in the hard copies.
Yeah.
The ebooks don't do anything for me. I need to hold the book. I need to feel it. I need to see the illustration up front.
I agree. Mm.
So when you seen your first book published, Dr. Peter, how did you feel?
Well, I was actually rather excited, although, I've written, I think, a dozen medical books, so I'm kind of used to having things published, but this is different, completely different audience, and it was sort of an experiment, and I wasn't sure what was going to happen, but it seemed to work. So, yeah, I was excited.
And how did your medical career influence your storytelling?
I wonder. I'm not sure that it did, really. When I stopped practicing, my dear wife said, "I married you for life, but not for lunch. So you're going to have to find something else to do." I think that got me. I guess that got me started on something different. And I always enjoy writing, so I set off in that direction. Yeah.
And why was it important to make the snake a lovable character?
Well, it's actually difficult, isn't it, for some people? Not many people are fond of snakes, although having got into the snake business, I've discovered that there are a lot of people who love snakes. I go to occasionally snake shows. I went to one not very long ago. There were 100 booths selling snakes, and me with Fred. Actually, the next booth was selling frozen rats, that snakes seemed to like. But it was, I guess that was a challenge for me to try and make Fred lovable, and I did it by making him helpful. So very early on, he learned that it was good to be helpful. The second book, the school book, as I mentioned, he was very helpful. Made all sorts of things that they didn't have. Became the whole hero of the book. He actually got 1,000,000 merit points from his teacher at the end of the book. Really impressive.
Well, we have a little girl who's watching, and she'd like to see Fred the snake, and she wants to know if he has a voice.
Actually, he got a little squeak. That's about as much as he says in public, anyway. I mean, privately.
So he's not a hissy snake. He's a squeaky snake.
That's right. He doesn't hiss. No, certainly not. Oh, no.
This little girl wants to know, do you do puppet shows?
Well, I take my puppet with me when I'm reading a book, but I don't do puppet shows all the time. I guess I'd never thought about that. I will show you one other thing. Excuse me just a second. So I mentioned Jungle Jim, who actually was the original person who sent Fred to stay with the boy in South Carolina. But he reappears when he has to come. And so this is my Jungle Jim hat, which I wear when I'm reading to the kids at school, and they're a little surprised to see a snake on my hat. But it's all part of the fun. This one's, you see, it's a relative. It's not a direct relative because they're different colors.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway.
I think I like your snakes, Dr. Peter.
Yeah. He's he's got lipstick and eyelashes and stuff, but he's a good guy, aren't you? Yeah. His hair is a little bit wobbly at times, but it's good.
What lessons do children absorb without even realizing it?
Well, yes, I think if they're reading it or somebody's reading to them, they do learn things that they should avoid, like crossing the road without thinking, without looking twice. Fred, actually, the reason he crossed the road in a hurry was because there was a barber's pole on a barber shop across the street, and a barber's pole, it's got rings of color. So Fred thought it was another snake because he was a bit lonely at the time. So he said, "Oh, there's a snake!" And so he rushed across the never a glance into the path of an ambulance. And anyway, that got him started. In that book, one of the fun parts was that after he got squished and went to hospital, the doctor said he needed some special thread to sew him back together. It comes from a plant that only grows beneath rhinoceroses. And so Jungle Jim was told to go off and find that rhino and get the thread and send it back by monkey post to the hospital. So he got mended with a special thread that was collected by Jungle Jim, who one supposes hunts fierce rhinoceroses. That's one of my unusual rhymes.
So, Dr. Peter, is there any other children's books that have inspired you to continue writing about Fred the Snake?
Well, I grew up with children's books, and often there were rhyming ones. The Cautionary Tales by Hilaire Belloc, wonderful, and things like that I think probably got me started. I'm not reading too many children's books right now. When I see the grandchildren are too old for these books now, but the great-grandkids, when I see them, I tend to read Fred books to them. Surprise, surprise.
I found somewhere in my homework here, great-granddaughter Alta Grace read the 8th book with you together. I seen a video of this.
Yeah.
How did that feel, reading with your great-granddaughter?
Well, I like that. That's like it a lot. Yes. I have 4 great-grandchildren now. One of them is actually a teenager. It's amazing. But they're a lot of fun. They're in the United States. We've got 2 families, and I have grandchildren, no great-grandchildren yet in England, but I have grandchildren and great-grandchildren in the States.
So what's the difference between a grandchild and a great-grandchild?
there's about 20 or 25 years difference in age, if they're from the same family. I think that's the fairly obvious difference. It's amazing how different personalities are in families. It's wonderful. You kind of sort of assume that they'd be fairly similar, but we've got a tremendous spectrum of personalities, and in the ones that are pretty grown up, different ambitions and different talents. It's wonderful, fantastic.
And how has travel shaped both your life and your books?
Well, as a medical professor, I was invited to lecture, as I said, over more than 50 countries. I've pretty much stopped doing that now, although I'm going back to Hong Kong later this year for the 40th anniversary of a meeting that I started over there. Right now, when we travel, it's often to catch up with people that I've trained, which is great because I can go and stay in their beach houses and play their golf courses, and which is one of the rewards of an academic career, of not only seeing people grow and turn into their own careers, but actually keep up with them as the years go by, which is very special. As far as traveling in the books, I guess the travel across the United States is just a throwback to a lot of the traveling I've done all over the States, although the United States is so big that it's really impossible to cover all of it. One of the nurses that worked very closely with me and retired at the same time has just finished her 50th state in a recreational vehicle. I kind of wish I'd done that, but it's too late for that now.
Oh, it's never too late to do anything, Dr. Peter.
Well, maybe not. Okay, let's go. I'm ready. Let's go.
Let's go. Let's do this. Why do you believe children's books can be a form of healing?
Well, they end up feeling good. After there's always an adventure in them. And my daughter, when she started reviewing and editing my first book, said you've got to put some crisis in there that they recover from, or some like Bernadette getting carried away on a wave and having to be rescued, that sort of thing. So, and in the first book, going to hospital might sound a bit scary, but the result was good. So that's sort of slightly reassuring that doctors hopefully are usually helpful and hospitals are not too scary. So I guess in those ways, they're pretty reassuring. I hope so.
Dr. Peter, are your books in hospitals?
Yes, the local ones for sure. I don't know about any of the other ones. Obviously I've sold quite a few of them and they could go wherever, but I don't know, haven't had any specific feedback on that.
And what does Fred still have to teach us?
I don't have another book in progress right now. I'm concentrating on a sequel to my memoirs. I wrote my memoirs 10 years ago, and now I seem to have decided I wanted to write a bit more. So I'm busy with that. So I'm not sure what Fred's going to do, if anything. I've had certainly quite a few requests to do a book about certain places or certain ideas. But right now I'm concentrating on something else. Actually, what I'm really concentrating on is talking to nice people like you in the hope that the word gets out about Fred the Snake books, or looks at my website, petercottontales.com. That's Cottontails, T-A-L-E-S, not Tails, T-A-I-L-S, petercottontales.com. You haven't asked me why I was called after a rabbit. Everybody asked.
When I first went looking for you, I was like, did he write the Peter Cottontail books?
Well, actually, Beatrix Potter the English author wrote about Peter Rabbit and Flopsy and Mopsy, Benjamin Bunny, and Cottontail, but she didn't write about Peter Cottontail. It wasn't until I moved to the United States that people fell over laughing every time they heard my name, because Peter Cottontail is an American invention. It's nothing to do with the original Peter Rabbit stories. So I decided that I would enjoy that. So I've sort of kept up with rabbits. We've got a lot of rabbits in the house, not live ones, but people gave me all sorts of cuddly rabbits. That's fun.
Have you ever been called Peter Cottontail?
Yes, many times. Yes, I have. So, which is all right, I guess.
I think Peter Cottontail is a cute little bunny.
Well, I guess if I'd written stories about a rabbit, it would be a lot easier to put it all together. Maybe I should start a rabbit series.
You just never know where you go down the rabbit holes. Well, you received some incredible awards for your books. It's called the Moonbeam Children's Book Award and the Mom's Choice Award honoring excellence. How did you feel when you got those books, those awards?
Well, I certainly like it a lot, and nice reviews. I actually been compared to Hilaire Belloc and Dr. Seuss and Roald Dahl. And who else? Lewis Carroll. I really like that. Yeah, of course.
So, Dr. Peter, I found out that you also have a coloring book.
Yeah, Fred I've got a Fred coloring book. Yeah, with which I usually give away when people buy my books, and it keeps the story going.
I want to get into your T now, because the T that you gave me was to nurture family, the TNF. What's that mean to you, to nurture family?
Well, there's nothing more important. Family is in the middle of everything, and if you can't concentrate on that, you're not really living properly. What else can I say? That's our main duty.
And Dr. Peter, what legacy would you like to leave behind for your grandchildren, besides Fred the Snake?
Well, I hope they think that I did the best I could. Not perfect, but did the best I could for the family and for my patients and people I came across. I guess we all hope for leaving behind a warm glow, if nothing else.
So what legacy would you like to leave behind with the medical field?
Oh, I don't think that's too difficult, because I got my name on all sorts of things, various bits of equipment, and I wrote the first textbook on gastrointestinal endoscopy, which is still the only significant textbook in its 8th edition, which just published last year. So if you go and see a gastrointestinal doctor, a gastroenterologist, or a GI doctor, whatever you want to call them, and mention the word Peter Cotton, they will know who I am.
So what got you into that field, Dr. Peter?
Well, I was very lucky as a not as a student, but as a junior doctor, still going through additional training. I was working with somebody who was a very good teacher, somebody I admired a lot, and he happened to be in that branch of speciality. And in addition, frankly, I thought that the GI world was rather the simplest one, because at that time we didn't have any of these fancy instruments of any sort. It was a fairly quiet, contemplated specialty, and with no risk of being called out at night or at the weekends. But then when we got all these fantastic instruments, we became a lot more useful and a lot more busy, and certainly occasionally getting called out at night at weekends, which I didn't enjoy.
What is something? Go ahead.
Well, that's the bottom line. I just was very lucky. And I think a lot of people's career, honestly, had a lot to do with luck and who you bumped into and who you admired as a teacher at school or at university or in life. We all have heroes that we like to think we could mimic or at least look up to.
So, Dr. Beer, how has the procedures changed over the years?
Well, enormously. The things that used to require major surgery in a week or 10 days in hospital, now we do as outpatients under a little bit of sedation and go home. It's quite extraordinary. And I don't take too much credit for that, but I did get very early on with, as you mentioned, something called ERCP, which I named, which is actually stands for endoscopic retrograde cholangiopancreatography, which is a stupidly long word, but basically it means that through the mouth with an instrument, you can get into you can remove stones from the bile duct and treat problems with the pancreas and things like that, which, as I said, in the old days, used to require a major surgery, a great big scar, and a significant amount of risk. So a lot of change, and it's still changing. The kids nowadays doing things that scare me to actually just even to look at, but they're moving on. So surgery used to be a major operations, big holes and stuff, and now increasingly it's got what they call minimally invasive, using endoscopes or laparoscopes and trying to minimize the discomfort and the scars and the length of time of recovery. And robotics are coming into that, and artificial intelligence. The world is continuing to change, very, very fortunately too. I mean, we're all lucky to be living at this time. Frankly, if I'd been born 50 years earlier, I wouldn't be here now, because the things that were common then were often untreatable.
How do you feel about the robotics coming into the medical fields?
Well, good one, proven to be useful. I mean, they are exciting gizmos, and sometimes exciting things are not always as useful or as beneficial or better than what we've got. But there are areas in which they have proven themselves already. Certain types of operations seem to be done more precisely than directly with the human hand. Most of the robotics that we use now are controlled. They're not running off on their own and doing operations when you're not looking, although that may happen in the future.
Well, let's get back into Fred, because Fred is a star today. If you could give me one word for Fred, what would it be?
I've thought about that, actually, because I wanted to add something to Fred so that people won't think he was nasty. So helpful is the one that I've actually fixed on. I used lovable at one stage, but helpful, I think, encapsulates him. That's basically it.
And best reaction you've ever had from a child?
Oh. Giving me their pocket money to buy a book? How about that?
That's always a good deal, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's one thing to sell to a parent. Actually, it's usually the grandparents that buy these books. But the children offering up some wrinkled up notes, that's really sweet.
Yeah, I can imagine coming up with your little chain and saying, I want to buy Fred the Snake.
Yeah. Well, they often think they're going to get Fred as well, but they don't.
Have you ever thought of making Freds for people to buy?
Well, I could do that. They're actually remarkably expensive. So I do sell the electric snakes from time to time, but they're not cheap either. But I've got the coloring books and crayons and snaky ballpoint pens and things that I give away.
And writing for kids teaches adults what?
I'm sorry, say that again?
Writing for kids teaches adults what? What does it teach an adult to write a children's book?
What does it teach an adult? Simplicity and helpfulness and caring, I guess. Fun. Kids seem to have a lot of fun. Somehow we can easily lose the joy of having fun. It's so special to see the young ones running around and laughing. Wish I could run around and laugh. I could laugh, but I can't run around quite so well now.
I know when I read children's book, it brings that little girl out in me, like the inner child.
Yeah, that's it. That's exactly the same. Yeah, I agree. Yeah. Fun.
Medicine or storytelling, what surprises you more?
Surprises me. In the medical field, I'm constantly surprising at the innovations that are going on. As I mentioned, there are things, medicines being developed and procedures being developed that I hadn't even considered. Things that we do now were unimaginable 20 or 30 years ago. And that doesn't only apply in medicine. I mean, the fact that we're all carrying around little computers in our hands or in our watches, unimaginable 20 years ago. As far as the books are concerned, nothing too surprising, I think, in the ones that I write. Sometimes I occasionally read a book and then I get a lot of surprises, different things that people get up to that I never even thought about. But it's part of life is seeing new things, right? And looking beyond your current perspective, trying to hook onto new ideas, evaluate them, incorporate them if appropriate.
And your favorite animal friend in the series besides Fred the snake?
Oh, that's a good one. I think maybe the giraffe. The giraffe has always been very helpful. He tends to stand up on the plane or on the car or on the golf cart or whatever it is to show the way to everybody. So he's very helpful in being, as it were, a visionary. Some people wanted to give him a name, but I haven't given him a name yet. Sooner, maybe one of your party could tell me what the good name for a giraffe.
Well, let's put it out there for all the viewers out there. A good name for a giraffe for Fred the Snake series.
Somebody said Shorty would be one word, but that
that'd be a little odd, right? He's a shorty with a long neck.
Exactly. Yeah.
A lesson every child should learn early.
Ooh. Eat your greens. Respect your parents. Respect. That's a tough one to teach to a 2-year-old. Learn to read, but I think respect, care for others as much as you care for yourself. I think as a young child, it's your world. There's a tendency to think that everybody's there to serve you. And we learn that. We need to learn that not by being crushed, but by example, I guess, watching how other people behave.
What do you feel the children are missing in today's society?
Freedom to run around and play in the woods. There's a lot of anxiety about safety nowadays, which is no doubt legit. But when I was a kid, we used to get on a bicycle and disappear all day. Come back when we were hungry. But I guess that's all totally irrelevant nowadays. Growing up in the countryside, I feel a little bit sorry for people who live in big cities who don't have the opportunity to experience nature, to experience a space around them in which they can run around, go explore safely. But there are so many wonderful things going on too. I'm not somebody who thinks that the past was so much better than the present. Every day is something new, not necessarily always good, but amongst them a lot of good things. So I'm happy about the future for my kids and grandkids.
And why does kindness belong in every story?
Well, intentionally, because that I think was one of my main interests in doing them, is not only having enjoyment, but learning, and part of that learning is appreciating other people.
Dr. Peter, what keeps you curating at 85?
Well, that's a good question. I guess I enjoy it, and other people seem to like it too. So I'm not ready to hang it up and sit in a rocking chair and wait for the sun to sink. I'm enjoying thinking about new things, writing about new things, and talking to people like you. That's always fun.
Well, Dr. Peter, give me a memory that sticks in your mind when you were a little boy. We were talking about playing in the creeks and in the woods and nature. Give me a story for my listeners out there, one that really sticks in your mind.
Well, talking about running around, I remember tripping over and hitting my head on a rock and going to the hospital and having stitches that you can see here, I think, somewhere. Just about, yeah. It's not a particularly good memory, but that's one of them. My dad was a doctor, and he was also an engineer, but he was also a glider pilot. And so when I was really quite young, we used to do a lot of gliding and sail planes. So some of my early memories as a kid and as a teenager was actually flying in planes and gliders, things like that. That I enjoyed.
And at 85, what do you enjoy doing now?
Having a nap in the afternoon is always good. You're interrupting that. Well, I enjoy keeping busy. I enjoy helping my wife as much as I can around the house. I very much enjoy the community in which I live. We live on an island, have to get to by boat, a 15-minute ferry ride on an island that has no cars, no shops. We run around in golf carts. We have a clubhouse and get together. I'm in charge of the social events on the island, and so I spend a fair amount of time organizing things and helping. I was president of the board of governors here until relatively recently, trying to make sure we conserve this island. It's a conservation, eco-friendly island, as I said, without any cars, without very much here, except a lot of animals, a lot of birds, 3 miles of beach. So this is a community that's been very, very good to us. We do a lot of things together, and even do things off the island. Even some of us have traveled together to the Galapagos and to Alaska and places like that. So that's really very special to me.
So, Dr. Peter, do you have any plans for any new books besides the memoir that's coming out? And I'm going to pop up your website so you can read out the website to the listeners.
Right, petercottontales.com, Tales, petercottontales.com. That'll tell you a lot more about me. If you go to petercottontales.com/books, that gives you all the books. And I have to tell you that there's discount of 20% right now on books, signed books from my website. You have to use the coupon code FEB17, small f, FEB 17, gets you a 20% discount, but only in February. So you better move on it fairly quickly if you want a signed book from Peter Cottontail.
Yeah, because we're already going into March in a couple of days. I can't believe how fast the year is going.
Right, I'm ready for the spring. It's hasn't sprung even in South Carolina. It's still too cold down here. Where are you, Liz? Where are you?
I'm in Cornwall, Ontario, Canada.
Okay.
Yeah,
So,
we got a mix of spring and winter. I don't know what's going on. We got a little bit of everything.
so you know that Bonnie Lemaire, my illustrator, is just outside Toronto?
She'd be about 6 hours away from me.
Oh, okay. But that's a pretty short distance in Canada, isn't it? That's a sort of...
That's like a hop, skip, and a jump. We
Yeah.
go to Toronto quite often. So I'm right in the middle of Ottawa and Montreal, so I get to celebrate in the big cities. I'm a country girl. I come from up north, so I'm used to the cold. I like the cold.
Well, good luck. You wouldn't like it down here then. Yeah, it gets a little warm in the summer, but I prefer the warmth.
So final message you have for all the little children that are listening and the grandparents and all that. What message would you have for them, Dr. Peter?
Thank you. Thank you for listening, and enjoy. Don't hesitate to do what you want to do within legal limits, of course. I tell my kids and my grandkids, you follow your passion. There are things that you really care about. Don't let anyone tell you something different, tell you to go off and do something safer or simpler or worth more money or something. Follow your passion. And I often say, as a stomach doctor, follow your guts. I think we think better sometimes with our guts than with our heads.
Like that, because I always listen to my gut. I'm just like, my gut is telling me no, my head is saying yes. I'm like, no, that's trouble.
Right.
Well, I really enjoyed this time together with you, Dr. Peter, and I really want to thank everybody for listening. I'm just going to give a wrap up of what today's tea time was, and we'll be back at 7 with Luke Mickleton, and he'll be talking about sleep in heavenly peace, where he talks about children not sleeping on the floor. It's an organization that makes bunk beds for children, so we're going to be talking about that as well. So Dr. Cotton, thank you. What stands out is not just your accomplishments, though they are extraordinary, but your elevation. You've moved from healing bodies to nurturing young minds, from writing medical textbooks to creating stories that protect children. That tells me something important. Purpose doesn't retire, it transforms. To everyone listening today, reflect on this. What stories have you been carrying that deserve to be written? What wisdom from your career could become a gift to the next generation? And what does legacy truly mean to you? Dr. Cotton reminds us that greatness is not about staying in our own lane. It's about allowing each season to expand your impact. Until next time, keep sharing your stories, keep honoring your journey, and remember, sometimes the simplest bedtime stories become the most lasting legacy. Until then, I will see everybody same time, same place, and we'll do this all over again at 7 p.m. with Luke Middleton. Thank you again, Dr. Peter, for everything.
Thank you.
And I'm going to cheers to you too. Thank you so much, Dr. Peter.
Enjoyed it.